Okay, we are back in the black hole of real estate, and today we want to talk about the issue that won't go away, the insurance issue. It's really big, and then of course everybody's wondering, are prices coming down? I think those are two things that are inescapable in a conversation about real estate and home values in this market. So today we're going to go deep on that. This is Ron Weiss-Sikarski, your host for the black hole of real estate. So insurance, why does this thing not want to go away? Well, because it costs more, number one, and it's harder to get. So those the top two pain points for anybody, is price and availability. And what we're finding right now is the vast majority of concerns about insurance are related to the 4-point inspections. So it's either the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC, or the roof, which is the big problem on there. But it's not limited to just that, because when you have a current home that's on the market and they have insurance with it, the easy thing to think is that we'll just get the same insurance. It's not always available that way. As that property changes hands, the company's likely to ask for a 4-point insurance form and look at that report to make sure everything's still okay, because maybe the report was done a few years ago and things have changed. And the same with the wind mitigation report. Is the roof properly strapped? Is there toenails? What's going on with the roof? Will it withstand a Category 5 hurricane? And what is deficient with it? So having two clean reports from a couple of years ago is good, and the insurance might be great. But if you have a less than clean report right now, this is going to have some inconsistencies and cause some problems, really, as you're trying to get through the inspection period. Because now you're aiming to get new insurance. And if you can just picture the scenario that the owner of the house has great insurance and the reports they have didn't show anything wrong. And now we have reports that do show things wrong. Well, a lot of these things didn't just create themselves in a minute overnight. Sometimes it could be it was missed on the previous report, or maybe the new report is erroneous. So now we've got to sort out which report is the right one. And it could involve getting a hold of an insurance company from a couple of years ago to have them take a look at their work, which doesn't happen hardly ever, because the new company is out there. And if there's something that needs to be corrected, they should come back and re-inspect it. And I think in most cases, when an inspection company comes out and they do some work, 4-point, wind mit, what have you, if there's something to be cured, they fix it. The company comes back out, re-inspects, clean bill of health, and you're good to go. The inconsistency is when it's something, let's just say that the roof is not properly strapped. And that's what it's showing today. It's unlikely it was properly strapped a couple of years ago, and it could be that it was missed or overlooked. It was a busier time. Accidents do happen, and so I'm going to trust that anything that was inconsistent from a few years ago was just a mistake. But, sometimes people want to shop insurance, and maybe they've got a couple of different wind mitigation reports or something like that. I'm not suggesting people should shop that, but maybe one report reflected better on the insurance, and if you had two in hand, you used the one. It's plausible that maybe it would have happened. I think I'd want to just talk about being careful about that. We didn't like the answer we got for one parent, so we went to the other one, and sometimes that will blow up in your face in epic proportions and battles down the road. I think what we want to do is get it right. And if we really knew that the roof or something with a 4-point was off, in the name of getting better insurance, perhaps we're putting ourselves or our family in harm's way, because if something truly is wrong with that roof or the electrical, and there was a catastrophic hurricane or a storm or a damage or an earthquake or whatever, where the electrical failed or the plumbing failed or the HVAC, or you're stuck for weeks on end, unable to place, being hot and not having air conditioning, but worse, the roof blows off and somebody gets hurt or worse. So I think as much as we want to get the right insurance policy at the right price, I also think we want to do it the right way and make sure that we're not attempting to save some money and compromising, somebody's health and well-being. So I want to be careful about that. Here's what I know. Insurance is going to be an ongoing topic that's probably going to increase in the conversation area. The general home inspection, that one's really telling the buyer of the home what needs to be fixed, what's right, what's wrong, and what they can expect. I think those are great reports. But I think there's an ever-increasing amount of a weight being placed upon the 4-point and the wind mitigation, to the point that would be really hesitant to inspect a home without those reports at this point, because they're so valuable in getting the right insurance policy, because they can save you not only a lot of money down the road, but you're going to know far better when the repairs are due, so you can properly budget. So when the roof eventually gets to the replacement point, or the plumbing and electrical are deficient in a way that is not good for the property or perhaps the bills that you're paying. So I think that's important. Also budgeting for the HVAC when that thing is going to need to be replaced. So I would really look deeper into those. And that's the insurance game. It's ratcheting up, and deals are falling apart because people are not able to gain agreement on how to solve the insurance problem on these properties. The other thing I want to talk about today is the home values. There's some people have been waiting since COVID for prices to come down, and of course it's gone the other direction, and it's been an inverse calculation mistake, is all I can say. So if somebody was waiting for prices to come down when interest rates are 2 and 3% and prices are 50% higher and the rates are triple, that was a bad bet. And I don't suspect that interest rates are going back down to 2 or 3%, and I don't think the prices are going back to pre-COVID, so I think we can wipe that out. I also think we can wipe out the 2008 conversation that clearly was never going to happen, but some people were pinning their hopes on it. 4 or 5 years later, they've been shut out of the market, not able to purchase, and waiting for home prices to come down. So I think one of two things is going to happen. First one, if prices come down, and let's say the home was at $400 and comes down to $380, it still might be $150,000 more than it was 5 years ago. So, coming down is relative to where you want to live on that timeline. And if it comes down a little bit, I'm saying is there a temptation? Well, now, it came down 10 grand. Maybe it'll come down 10 more grand. And then when it comes down, if it went down 20, well, would it come down 30? I think the same indecision that caused people to hesitate waiting for prices to come down becomes now I think they're coming down even more. And I think that same hesitation is what's going to not only shut some people out of the market, it's going to prevent some people from ever making the move that they've been wanting to make for many, many years. And now that we've been through this, the first mistake, if you want to call it that, was made. And we're compounding that by hesitation or just unwillingness to move forward. At some point you got to move. And I don't care what the market is. Many people move because they have to, not because they choose to. They're in a family situation or a change in family status. They're having kids or getting divorced or somebody's passed on or there's a job transfer. Those things get people to move. So as far as where we go next on this conversation of price changing, I want to talk about the illusion that they're coming down. And it's not too many weeks to go by. We're like, hey, this home was going for $500 and I got it for $400. Well, what decision was made that $500 was the exact right price to list that property at in the first place? You see, maybe it should have been listed at $400 or $425 long ago, and it lingered on the market, and they eventually took price reductions and finally just, I'm going to take this lowball $400 because I got to move. Well, maybe $400 was actually a really good price. They just overestimated the value of the home, or they were overly optimistic that the market would continue to ascend rapidly upward, and it didn't. So sometimes the fact that the price appears to be coming down was just listed way too high in the first place. I've really watched for that. One of the ways we can look at that and measure it is the listing price ratio compared when you compare it to the sales price. Now, there's two flavors of that. There's the one that was originally listed at $500 and it sold at $400. Well, that would look like 80%, list to sell price. But what if it started at $500, but they dropped it to $400 and somebody paid it? Well, now it looks like you got 100% of the listing price. At the time it was listed when it went under contract, it's absolutely 100%, but it probably started at a higher number than that because most properties are selling below the list right now. Not all, but a lot. So when you're looking at these numbers, depending on if the agent's trying to be a little bit tricky or pad their stats and look like they got a better percentage, which are you most comfortable with? I might tell you that the listing price, when they took the listing compared to the sales price, is misleading because sometimes there will be an agent that will say, look, we'll try your price for 30 days. If it doesn't work, we'll move to this. All right, so do you measure it in 30 days in? You could. It's a little more tricky, a little more complicated. If you look at the price it was listed at when it went under contract, I'd allow that's probably a really good number to measure what attracted buyers to look at it, what they're willing to pay in that percentage gap. The problem is, how long did it take? what skills were involved with that, and is it a reliable number? I'm not sure that any of them are 100% reliable. I think the purists would tell you that whatever you started at as a listing price compared to what it sells, that's your number. And I don't think they're wrong. But I also know that if we looked at if there was a signed agreement that says, I'll test this price for 30 days, set it right in the listing and I'll move to this price if it's unsold, that would be a really good indication. What's the real price? And sometimes you see it 30 days in. I don't think there's anybody measuring the price 30 days in versus the sales price, but it might be the best one out there. So something to think about. I'm sure there's a tech stack that could do it, but I think somebody would argue 15 days or 20 days. So I didn't validate the whole thing and say, are prices going up or down? I think it feels like it because homes are taking longer to sell and inventory is creeping up. It's a lot more than it was. So, when we look at those items for those reasons, I get a little bit excited about it and think, all right, so if there's more inventory and it's taking a little bit longer to sell, buyers can be a little more patient and not rush into things. I think that's good and healthy for the market. But waiting too long to go under contract or thinking the price will come down even more, that might be a game that's offset down the road into a place where they don't get a lot more value out of it. It could very well be that if prices were to soften, I'm not suggesting they are, but even if they soften a little bit, as interest rates eventually come down, which I do believe they will between now and the end of the year, I believe that any movement in the price downward might be negated when the interest rates go lower. People can afford more. I think it pushes it back up, and it might just ricochet in the other direction. So if you're timing the market, and I don't know that anybody's ever been really good at timing the market, but right now might be as good a time as any to make a move in real estate. So there you have it. The insurance thing, it just continues to be a story, and our prices coming down, not so much right now, but there's reasons it feels that way. Love to hear your comments. Definitely drop something below that tells me that you either agree or disagree with us. That would be great. And I would love for you to subscribe. So do that too. Hit the button, subscribe, and then we can be bringing these messages to you every week, and we'll learn it together. This is Ron Wojciechowski for the Black Hole of Real Estate.